Our final speaker for what's been a very wide-ranging and interesting session is Dr. James Carton from Dublin City University. James is currently Assistant Professor in Energy Sustainability and is also the co-founder of Hydrogen Ireland Association, which he's going to tell us about now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. So what I want to present today is basically, it's actually summarised in a lot of the presentations here today. The Hydrogen Ireland Association actually resonates with many projects here, between Dublin City University, myself, Hydrogen Ireland Association, HMI, GEMCOM. There's a lot of connections between everything that's going on in Ireland and in a number of European projects. So I want to basically just present Hydrogen Ireland, present who we are, what we represent, and then basically just kind of some final kind of notes to kind of think about some projects that are happening that were basically mentioned today. So we kind of all know why we go with hydrogen. Thank you. We all know why we use hydrogen. But the main reason to use hydrogen, it can fuel your cars, buses, transport. It can fuel your ferries. It can heat your homes, cook your food, supply chemicals to your industry, and also you can actually produce it yourself. So I think Paul actually mentioned energy security. Hydrogen allows energy security actually to a high degree. And I think that's very important just to remember, and basically the reasons why hydrogen is important. I've robbed this diagram from GEMCOM, so thank you very much, guys. But this actually shows kind of what the kind of point I want to get through today is basically you have a society where you have energy being generated, you have used within applications. So in this case here, you have energy being generated from renewable energies, wind, solar. And what we can do with it basically is we can store that energy with using hydrogen, and we can deliver energy vectors to different parts of the economy. So we can deliver chemicals to industry, fuels to transport, and heatings to your homes. And that's all allowed by using hydrogen as that vector. And actually, obviously, you can turn hydrogen into methane or ammonia, etc. But hydrogen being that vector, which is important. Hydrogen is meant to be in that text box. So what I want to actually go through here is kind of look at different parts of this kind of schematic and look at the technology, see where we are with it, and see how different projects are coming together to actually realize different aspects of this chain, and also how Hydrogen Ireland can actually fit in with some of these connections. So this is an image actually of where we've come in the last 20 to 30 years on renewables, and specifically wind on the big picture. We've gone from windmills in the 19th century through to initial wind turbines in the 90s, through to skyscraper-size wind farms that are basically aimed for offshore application. Single turbines in the 90s were producing 0.5 megawatt. Turbines now are being manufactured at 10 megawatts, and then basically going to 15 megawatts. We would see everything from about 7 megawatts up will be offshore. Everything below that will be onshore, just for community benefit. We also see just on the amount of technology being installed of wind and solar across the world. And the IEA actually does a kind of report how much technology is being installed every year and try to predict it across a number of years. They get it wrong every time. Renewables are actually just growing at a huge rate at this stage. And the price of renewables, this is they call the Swanson curve to do with photovoltaic technology. The cost of renewables is dropping at a huge rate as well. So this is very important to realize this and the scale of where we're going to the future. And this has impacts then within the supply chain of hydrogen, certainly renewables. So hydrogen generation, you can produce hydrogen from a number of sources. If you're going green, you'll probably use electrolysis and you'll probably use renewable sources. But it's not the only source. We can use blue hydrogen, grey hydrogen from grid electricity or from natural gas. But what I want to say about electrolysis technology, which is connected to renewables, which is connected to green hydrogen, is that the technology is developed, it's mature, and it's reducing in cost all the time. And this is the kind of message that we're trying to get across, is that we have partners that are electrolysis companies, suppliers, etc. We're always trying to get across the message that when you read a report being produced by a European organisation, company, whoever, they're 5 years behind of what actually the cost and where the technology is for electrolyzers, fuel cells, etc. And the technology is well mature. We do certainly have to reduce cost, but certainly the technology is mature. And basically, green hydrogen production from electrolysis is the way to go for hydrogen production. Once you have the hydrogen, where does it go? So, in the initial phases for the next 5 to 10 years, we'll say, certainly mobility is your number one low-hanging fruit, you would call it. You pump everything into mobility, and you decarbonize a very hard to decarbonize sector. The other low-hanging fruit is industry. You push your hydrogen or hydrogen vectors into industry. You could decarbonize the oil industry and their requirement for hydrogen, the desulfurization processes today. The steel industry is another one that you could involve. The nitrogen production for food fertilizer is actually another one you could decarbonize today. And the vector to actually use that is probably initially the natural gas network and natural gas, but then moving along into hydrogen and allowing the natural gas network to actually decarbonize itself over a number of years to actually bring it eventually into a huge portion of hydrogen. And most likely, it's quite interesting, the natural gas grid, once you go past 20%, you don't necessarily, you can't easily go to 30%, 40%, 50% hydrogen. You actually have to go to 20% and then most likely switch to 100% because of the limitations within basically the outputs of what the gas grid is connected to. So the idea for what people looking at this is quite interesting and actually understanding where hydrogen can be delivered to and where it can actually decarbonize. And certainly the gas grid is certainly a vector, an asset that is certainly very useful to actually transport hydrogen within regions and then into long-term 100% grids. One thing, actually, a lot of people mentioned fueling stations today, and there was a few really important points to be made. Small fueling stations are really good for small projects, but really on the mass market of scale out, and Mark from Toyota mentioned there, once you go to scale out of infrastructure where you're getting 800 vehicles or 20, 30, 40, 50 buses, you really have to go at large scale fueling stations. And this gives you a couple of things which were mentioned. It gives you the redundancy of scale, it gives you the impact of scale, and it gives customer confidence. And I think all those things certainly are required from a technology. And again, fueling stations are at, they're mature. They're still relatively expensive, but certainly in the long term, their costs can be reduced. And certainly there was a lot of projects mentioned today of how you get the hydrogen to the fueling station. So do you produce it on site? Do you deliver it by truck? Deliver it by pipe? And how's that managed? So there's kind of different ways of doing that, and they're all very known. It's all very known and developed. It's just getting that infrastructure out into the public, I think, is what matters. Just in relation to decarbonisation, I want to spend 2 slides on this. And basically, one of the most impactful ways to decarbonise transport is using public transport. You can obviously walk and cycle, and I'd promote that, but if you're wanting to decarbonise a city from transport, you use public transport. You look at emission standards and you look at health of people, and basically that points you towards zero emissions. And then that's where basically hydrogen can come in to give you rural and urban, unlike batteries, for example, unlike CNG, which may have limitations in urban if we are looking at emissions and health issues in cities. We wanted low cost, connected, efficient, low emission. But I would say, well, why not go zero emission in relation to using hydrogen within these transport fleets? Skip that. So one thing is quite interesting, actually, and it's some people say, what is the solution? Is it battery electric or is it hydrogen? I think one thing to recognize is that the future hydrogen electric vehicle is a battery electric vehicle, except instead of the battery, you have a fuel cell on your tank. The technology, the driving technology, the motor technology, the autonomous technology, all that's the exact same as a fuel cell car. I think that's really interesting to kind of get that message to the public. And again, in Hydrogen Ireland, we actually tried to get that message out, that actually there is no silver bullet. The future will be mixed, and the technology isn't as strange as you think. And the technology is, as Mark's presentation, as a lot of people's presentations said, the technology is here, the cars are here, the trucks are here, the buses are here. And we just need to get the message out that this is not a new technology, this is certainly a mature technology. And then this summarizes kind of just some projects and stuff across the world you all know about. I think Hydrogen Mobility Ireland, certainly for Ireland, and the island of Ireland, which is important to mention, which Mark mentioned, is really a fantastic strategy to kind of develop, to understand and get involved with. And where Hydrogen Ireland is involved with this group is that we're obviously interested in mobility, but we're also interested in connecting hydrogen mobility with the public, to actually disseminate this for the public, disseminate this for companies that are not in the group, to connect with small industry that are interested in actually getting involved with fueling stations, transport, whatever it is. So again, Hydrogen Ireland is kind of acts as this kind of a body to our association to actually kind of connect, disseminate, and network with. And we kind of feel ourselves as that network to kind of share information. And again, when you go the strategy of renewable energy to hydrogen production to transport, you can actually decarbonize all transport, cars, buses, rail, and ferries. And there's fantastic projects, as mentioned today, that are basically developing these. I'm really glad that some of the projects mentioned today are actually were highlighted. So in the absence of the warrant, I was actually going to mention them. But there's fantastic projects happening in Ireland on hydrogen. And again, this is the message we try to present in Hydrogen Ireland, is that hydrogen is for mobility, it's for industry, it's for community, and it's for everybody, and get connected. And we try to present, and advertise Seafuel, Gemcom, Hydlantic, the Hydrogen Mobility Group, any activities that are going on, and any new projects going on. And one of the things actually, which was mentioned actually, the Valentia Island projects, just a really fantastic project where 25% of the island came to a meeting and where we presented options for them, hydrogen being one of them, and they literally were very enthused with the technology. They saw the benefits of transporting hydrogen. Thanks to John Quinn, we had a car there to actually see the car. And this is important to get this message across, that this isn't a thing that's over here. It's actually something that's actually real. The car is outside, the fuel is outside, and we can make this work. So, kind of from our point of view, and where the association has come from, and our members that are joining, is we want to recognise that hydrogen can do a lot, and it can basically decarbonise all sectors of society. We had a couple of weeks ago, Hydrogen Ireland co-organised a meeting with ESB. So ESB is our major electricity supply board of Ireland. And we co-organised an event with them, with the International Institute of European Affairs, which is a policy group spread across Europe. And we brought two European speakers over to Dublin to present to the Electricity Supply Board, the TSOs, the DSOs, and there's a number of people in the room that were at that event. It was actually really good to understand actually where people that have been very silent around hydrogen in the last number of years actually have this undercurrent of interest in it, and certainly are getting interested a lot more into what hydrogen can do for them in energy security, in reducing curtailment, constrained electricity, and the restrictions around grid and battery electric vehicles. So that's kind of really interesting, and it kind of resonates the fact that we can decarbonise all sectors of society if we really want to, using hydrogen. I think the point at which a lot of projects showed, renewables and hydrogen, power to gas, power to X, scale matters. So again, the idea of these pilot projects that you're kind of producing a small amount of hydrogen for one car, it's a lovely idea, brilliant, do it, but actually scale matters. 20 buses, 2 or 3 wind farms using all their curtailed electricity joined together to use a very big electrolyzer to produce hundreds or thousands of tons of hydrogen is what the scale are at. You know, if you look at the oil industry, they don't deal with tons, they deal with millions of tons of oil being transported. So we need to get to that scale, and scale matters. And that's where the next one is cost comes down. Mass production of the fuel cells, mass production of vehicles, mass production of electrolyzers, that's where your cost comes down. And that's where we can achieve that going into the future. And then the other thing, which again, some of the groups I work with, and the kind of the message I want to send out to everybody is that there is potentially an issue because the skills and training necessary for the future we see isn't there. And with my connection with Dublin City University as assistant professor in sustainable and teaching, lecturing students in it, we're trying to always bring in sustainability. We're always trying to bring in options for our students. And certainly training from technicians straight through to managers of companies, CEOs of companies, CTOs of companies. We're trying to bring in training on that. And we're trying to basically inform the community, everybody, that, you know, this is something to be watched out for. And, you know, working with people in the room, we're actually trying to do some projects on this. So what I would say is that Hydrogen Ireland is your network. It's your connection into industry. We kind of represent energy from electricity to gas. We represent mobility through Hydrogen Mobility Ireland. Industry, we're interested in decarbonising the gas grid, and we're working with partners on that. And community, we're working with GEMCOM to ensure that their Hydrogen Community Forum actually is represented really well, gets people on board, and people can understand hydrogen, get to interact with it. So if you're any more interest in us or interested in looking further and joining our association, feel free. If there's any students in the room, you're actually free to join, so come follow us. And all our news is on Twitter, hashtag Ireland Hydrogen, so happy to retweet and your followers. So thank you very much, and I appreciate being invited here to talk.